The lawyer's hands trembled as he opened the sealed envelope, and when he read Grandma's final words out loud, my entire family went dead silent. What she revealed about each of them would change Christmas forever. The lawyer's hands trembled as he opened the sealed envelope, and when he read Grandma's final words out loud, my entire family went dead silent. What she revealed about each of them would change Christmas forever. I'm Amelia, and this is the story of how I went from being the family outcast to holding all the cards at the most devastating Christmas dinner of their lives. Let me paint you a picture of what Christmas looked like in the Morrison family. Imagine a sprawling Victorian mansion in the elite Beacon Hill district of Boston, where old money whispers through every mahogany panel and crystal chandelier. This wasn't just a house, it was a monument to generational wealth, complete with a staff that polished silverware worth more than most people's cars. Every Christmas Eve, the family would gather in the grand dining room with its hand-painted murals and 18-foot ceilings. The table would be set with Grandma Rose's priceless Spode china, the kind that gets passed down through bloodlines like royal heirlooms. And for 10 years, there was one empty chair at that table. Mine. You see, I committed the ultimate sin in the Morrison family. I fell in love with someone they deemed beneath us. Marcus was a firefighter, a man who saved lives for a living but didn't have the right last name or trust fund to match. When I chose love over their approval, they chose exile over acceptance. The last Christmas I attended, I'll never forget it. I was 22, standing in that opulent foyer with Marcus beside me, both of us dressed in our best clothes that suddenly felt like bargain bin costumes in a palace. My mother, Victoria Morrison, picture Grace Kelly with the warmth of an ice sculpture, looked at Marcus like he was something she'd stepped in. Amelia, she said, her voice carrying that particular brand of disdain that only old money can perfect, surely you understand that Christmas is for family. Marcus is my family now, I replied, reaching for his hand. My father, Richard, didn't even look up from his scotch. Then perhaps you should celebrate elsewhere. My siblings, my older brother James and younger sister Patricia, just stood there in their designer clothes, watching me get cast out like they were spectators at a particularly entertaining execution. Not one of them said a word in my defense. But it was Grandma Rose's silence that cut the deepest. This woman who had taught me to bake Christmas cookies, who had read me fairy tales in that same grand library, who had always been my safe harbor in this cold family, she just turned away. So I left. Marcus and I walked out of that mansion, and I didn't look back. But as we drove away, I saw Grandma Rose watching from her bedroom window, and I could have sworn I saw tears on her face. That was 10 years ago. In those 10 years, Marcus and I built something beautiful. We bought a cozy craftsman house in Cambridge, got married in a simple ceremony with friends who loved us for who we were, not what we owned. Marcus got promoted to captain, and I became a successful pediatric nurse. We had 2 beautiful children, Emma, now 8, and little Jacob, who just turned 5. We created our own Christmas traditions. Pancake breakfasts on Christmas morning, building snowmen in our backyard, reading "'Twas the Night Before Christmas" by the fireplace Marcus built with his own hands. It wasn't grand or gilded, but it was filled with something the Morrison mansion had always lacked: genuine love. Every December, like clockwork, I'd receive the same elegant invitation on thick cardstock with gold embossing: "The Morrison family requests your presence at Christmas Eve dinner." And every year, I'd write the same response: "Thank you, but I have other plans." My mother would call, her voice tight with barely concealed frustration. "Amelia, this is getting ridiculous. Grandma Rose isn't getting any younger." But here's the thing about being ostracized: it teaches you to value the love you do have. I wasn't about to expose my children to people who saw them as less than because their father didn't summer in the Hamptons. Then, 3 weeks before Christmas this past year, everything changed. I was at the hospital, checking on a little patient who'd been in a car accident, when my phone rang. Unknown number, but something made me answer. Amelia Morrison? The voice was professional, unfamiliar. Yes, this is she. This is Jonathan Whitmore from Whitmore, Stevens and Associates. I'm calling regarding Rose Morrison's estate. I'm afraid I have some difficult news. Grandma Rose was gone. At 91, she'd passed peacefully in her sleep at the mansion. The funeral was in 3 days, and I was cordially invited to attend. I sat in that hospital hallway, staring at my phone as tears rolled down my cheeks. The last connection I had to my childhood, the one person in that family who had ever truly seen me, gone. Marcus found me there 20 minutes later, still clutching my phone. "Baby, what's wrong?" When I told him, he wrapped me in his arms and said the words I needed to hear: "We're going to that funeral. She deserves to have someone there who actually loved her." The funeral was exactly what you'd expect from the Morrisons, an elaborate affair at the most prestigious church in Boston, filled with society people who probably couldn't tell you Rose's middle name but showed up because it was the place to be seen. I sat in the back with Marcus, Emma, and Jacob, watching my family perform their grief like actors in a play. My mother dabbed her eyes with a designer handkerchief that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. My father stood stoic and important, accepting condolences like a politician at a campaign event. James and Patricia flanked them, the perfect children, wearing their sorrow like designer accessories. But here's what was interesting: throughout the entire service, not one of them looked back at me. It was like I was invisible, a ghost from their past who had no right to mourn. After the service, Mr. Whitmore approached me. He was a distinguished man in his 60s, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. "Miss Morrison," he said quietly, "I wonder if you might join us for the reading of your grandmother's will tomorrow evening. She specifically requested your presence." My mother, who had been accepting condolences nearby, went rigid. "I'm sorry, Mr. Whitmore, but that won't be necessary. Amelia hasn't been part of this family for years." The lawyer's expression didn't change, but his voice became firm. "I'm afraid Mrs. Morrison was quite specific about her wishes. Amelia must be present, or the will cannot be read. You could have heard a pin drop in that church vestibule." My family stood there, frozen in their perfect tableau of shock and barely concealed rage. "Fine," my father said through clenched teeth. "Tomorrow at 7. Don't be late." The next evening, I found myself back in that mansion for the first time in a decade. Walking through those familiar halls felt like time travel. Everything was exactly as I remembered, from the Persian rugs to the oil paintings of stern-faced ancestors who seemed to judge me from their gilded frames. We gathered in the library, a room that had always been my favorite with its floor-to-ceiling bookshelves and the scent of leather and old paper. The family arranged themselves like they were posing for a portrait, my parents in the wingback chairs, James and Patricia on the antique settee. I took a seat across from them, Marcus beside me, our children coloring quietly in the corner. Mr. Whitmore opened his briefcase with ceremonial precision, withdrawing several documents and one sealed envelope that looked different from the others, older, more personal. "Before we begin with the formal will," he said, "Mrs. Morrison left specific instructions that this letter be read aloud to the entire family." He opened the envelope with careful hands, and as he unfolded the pages inside, I caught a glimpse of Grandma Rose's familiar handwriting, the same elegant script that had labeled my childhood Christmas gifts. "My dearest family," Mr. Whitmore began, his voice carrying through the sudden silence, "if you are hearing this, then I am gone, and it is time for truths to be told." My mother shifted uncomfortably in her chair. My father's jaw tightened. "For 10 years, I have watched this family tear itself apart over pride and prejudice. For 10 years, I have watched you punish my granddaughter for the crime of choosing love over money. The lawyer continued, Victoria, Richard, James, Patricia, you have sat at my Christmas table for a decade, accepting my hospitality, my gifts, my love, while systematically excluding the one member of this family who understood what Christmas truly means. My mother's face had gone pale. This is preposterous. She's confused. She was elderly, let him finish, my father said quietly, but his voice was strained. You think Amelia needs your approval, your acceptance, your money. But let me tell you what I have observed over these 10 years while you celebrated your hollow Christmases in this house. Mr. Whitmore turned the page, and I noticed my siblings exchanging nervous glances. Amelia has built a life of substance. She saves children's lives every day at the hospital. She married a man who runs toward danger to save others. She has raised 2 beautiful, kind children who know the value of compassion over currency. James, you're 45 and have never held a job that wasn't handed to you by your father. Patricia, you're 38 and your greatest accomplishment is organizing charity galas where you spend more on your dress than you raise for the cause. The silence in the room was deafening. James's face had turned red, while Patricia looked like she might faint. Victoria, you have turned motherhood into a performance art, caring more about appearances than the actual well-being of your children. And Richard. The lawyer paused, looking directly at my father. You have confused wealth with worth for so long that you've forgotten the difference. My father stood up abruptly. This is enough. The old woman was clearly not in her right mind when she wrote this. Sit down, Richard, Mr. Whitmore said with quiet authority. We're not finished. The lawyer looked directly at me, and for a moment, I could swear I saw Grandma Rose's love in his eyes. Amelia, my darling girl, you are the only one in this room who understood that Christmas isn't about crystal and china and showing off for people who don't really care about you. Christmas is about love, sacrifice, and building something beautiful with the people who matter. You chose a man who would die to save strangers. You chose a career caring for sick children. You chose to build a family based on love rather than leverage. You chose correctly, and I am so proud of you. Tears were streaming down my face now, but I didn't care. Across from me, my family sat in stunned silence. Now, Mr. Whitmore continued, to the matter of my estate. He set aside the letter and picked up the formal will. Rose Morrison was quite specific about her wishes. My mother leaned forward, no doubt expecting to hear about the mansion, the investments, the family jewelry that had been passed down for generations. To my son Richard, I leave the sum of $50,000 and my hope that he will learn to be a better father to the daughter he cast aside. My father's mouth fell open. $50,000. It sounded like a lot, until you realized that Grandma Rose's estate was worth over $20 million. To my daughter-in-law Victoria, I leave my collection of china and crystal, since she has always cared more about place settings than people. My mother actually gasped. The china was beautiful, but it was hardly the fortune she'd been expecting. To my grandson James, I leave my vintage car collection, valued at approximately $200,000, and the suggestion that he learn to drive his own life for once. James looked like he'd been slapped. To my granddaughter Patricia, I leave my jewelry collection and the hope that she will find something more valuable than diamonds to occupy her time. And to my beloved granddaughter Amelia Morrison, who alone understood the true meaning of family, I leave the remainder of my estate, including this house and all other assets, valued at approximately $18 million. The room exploded. My mother shot to her feet, her composure finally cracking. This is impossible. She can't do this. We'll contest it. Mr. Whitmore remained calm. Mrs. Morrison was of sound mind and had the will reviewed by 3 independent attorneys. It is ironclad. My father was pacing now, his face red with rage. $18 million to someone who hasn't been part of this family for 10 years? Actually, I said quietly, standing up for the first time since we'd arrived, I've been part of a family for 10 years. Just not this one. I looked around the room that had once intimidated me, at the people who had made me feel small and worthless. But I wasn't that 22-year-old girl anymore. Marcus, I said, turning to my husband, take the children to the car. We have some things to discuss. After they left, I faced my birth family. Grandma Rose was right about all of you. For 10 years, you've sat in this house congratulating yourselves on your superiority while I built a real life with people who actually love me. But you know what the beautiful irony is? I don't want your money. I don't want this house. I don't need your validation. My mother looked confused. Then what do you want? I want you to understand what Christmas is going to look like from now on. I walked to the mantelpiece where Grandma Rose's photo sat surrounded by expensive ornaments that had never been touched by children's hands. This house? I'm turning it into a home for families in crisis. Families who need a safe place to rebuild their lives. Firefighter families, nurse families, teacher families, people who actually contribute to society. The mansion that has stood as a monument to your exclusivity is going to become a beacon of inclusion. Patricia finally spoke, her voice small. What about us? What about Christmas? You're welcome to join us, I said. But there are conditions. Christmas will be about giving, not getting. It will be about serving others, not being served. It will be about love, not luxury. I looked at each of them in turn. If you can handle that, if you can sit at a table with foster children and single mothers and families who are just grateful to have a warm meal, then you're welcome. But if you come as equals. No superiority, no judgment, no lectures about proper behavior or appropriate company. You come ready to love unconditionally, or you don't come at all. You know what happened next? My father walked out without a word. My mother followed, but not before turning back to hiss, "You'll regret this, Amelia." But James surprised me. He stayed. I don't know how to do this, he said quietly, but I'd like to learn. Patricia was crying now, real tears, not the performance kind. I've wasted so much time, she whispered. So much time being angry about nothing. 3 months later, on Christmas Eve, that mansion was full again. But this time it was full of laughter instead of judgment, warmth instead of cold perfection. The dining room table that had once showcased Grandma Rose's perfect china now held mismatched dishes filled with potluck contributions from families who knew what it meant to struggle and survive. Marcus carved turkey alongside a single father who was working 3 jobs to support his kids. Emma and Jacob played with children whose parents were rebuilding their lives after losing everything. I served apple pie to a grandmother who was raising her grandchildren because addiction had claimed their parents. And there, at the head of the table where Grandma Rose used to sit, was James, my brother who had learned to laugh again, who was teaching underprivileged kids how to read instead of managing his trust fund. Patricia was in the kitchen, washing dishes and actually enjoying it, talking with a young mother about the challenges of raising children on minimum wage. My parents never came back. They moved to their winter home in Florida permanently, cutting all ties rather than admit they had been wrong. But their absence didn't create emptiness, it created space for people who understood that Christmas isn't about what you can afford to give, but about what you're willing to share. As I watched this beautiful chaos unfold in the house that had once been a mausoleum of materialism, I felt Grandma Rose's presence so strongly it took my breath away. This was what she had envisioned. This was why she had given me the means to make it happen. But here's the twist that even I didn't see coming. 2 weeks after that first Christmas, Mr. Whitmore called me with news that would change everything once again. "Amelia," he said, his voice carefully controlled, "I need to see you immediately. There's something about your grandmother's letter that you need to know." When I arrived at his office, he was holding that familiar envelope, the one that had contained Grandma Rose's devastating truth-telling letter. "This letter," he said slowly, "wasn't written by your grandmother." My world tilted. "What do you mean?" He opened the envelope and showed me the pages inside. The handwriting that I had thought was Grandma Rose's elegant script, it wasn't hers at all. Your grandmother dictated this letter to someone else, someone whose handwriting you would recognize but not immediately identify in the emotion of the moment. He turned the pages toward me, and I saw the subtle differences I had missed in my grief and shock. This handwriting was more modern, the letters formed by someone much younger. "Who?" I whispered. He pulled out another document, a video recording authorization signed by Rose Morrison just 1 week before her death. Your grandmother made a video recording of herself dictating this letter. She knew her handwriting had become shaky with age, so she asked her night nurse to transcribe it for her. But there's more, Amelia. She made the video recording for a reason. He turned his laptop toward me, and there was Grandma Rose, sitting in her bedroom at the mansion, looking directly into the camera with eyes that were sharp and clear and full of love. "My darling Amelia," her recorded voice said, "if you are watching this, then my plan worked perfectly. You see, I've been watching your family for 10 years, waiting for the right moment to fix what we broke." The recorded Grandma Rose smiled, and it was the same smile I remembered from childhood. "That letter wasn't just my final words, sweetheart. It was my Christmas gift to you, the gift of truth, delivered at exactly the right moment to give you the power to heal this family the right way. You see, I knew that if I just left you the money, they would contest the will, fight you in court, make your life miserable. But if I left you something more valuable, the moral authority to remake this family's legacy, then the money would just be a tool to accomplish something beautiful." The video continued, "I have watched you build a life of substance and love, and I knew that if given the chance, you would use my resources not for revenge, but for redemption." The letter told them their flaws not to destroy them, but to give them the choice to change. And you, my brilliant granddaughter, gave them that choice with grace and wisdom. Grandma Rose leaned closer to the camera, her eyes twinkling with mischief I remembered so well. "Some of them will choose pride over progress, and that's their loss. But others, like James, like Patricia, they'll choose to grow. And they'll have you to thank for showing them how. That house isn't just your inheritance, Amelia. It's your opportunity to prove that the Morrison family legacy can be about lifting people up instead of looking down on them." The recording ended with Grandma Rose blowing a kiss at the camera. "Merry Christmas, my darling girl. I love you more than all the stars in the sky." I sat in that lawyer's office, crying and laughing at the same time, because I finally understood. Grandma Rose hadn't just given me money and a house. She had given me the chance to rewrite our family's story. She had orchestrated the perfect Christmas miracle, not the kind that comes wrapped in pretty paper, but the kind that unwraps hearts and opens minds and creates space for love where there used to be judgment. This Christmas, when I sit at that table surrounded by families who are building beautiful lives from broken pieces, I'll raise my glass to Grandma Rose, the woman who taught me that the greatest inheritance isn't money. It's the wisdom to use whatever you have been given to make the world a little bit brighter for people who need hope. And every Christmas for the rest of my life, I'll remember that sometimes the most perfect gift is the chance to prove that love really can conquer everything, even a decade of silence, pride, and misplaced priorities. Because it turns out that the best revenge isn't getting even. It's getting better. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, you get the chance to help the people who hurt you get better too. That's what Christmas miracles are really made of, not magic, but the choice to love bigger than you've been hurt. Ending twist: the devastating letter that destroyed the family's composure wasn't actually written by Grandma Rose in anger, but was carefully orchestrated as part of her master plan to give Amelia the moral authority and resources needed to heal the family through redemption rather than revenge.